Delegates from the Heiltsuk Nation are seeking changes to the oil spill compensation rule. Chief Marilyn Slett will present their case to the International Maritime Organization in London. They aim to have compensation formulas reorganized for indigenous cultural losses, not just economic and environmental damage. For more on this, look
A
here.
British Columbia coastal First Nation is urging an international UN body to overhaul how oil spill compensation is calculated, arguing that current formulas ignore the cultural, spiritual, and intergenerational harms Indigenous communities suffer when spills occur in their territories. The request comes as Transport Canada reviews the Marine Liability Act and as nations across BC's coast continue to confront the aftermath of shipsource spills. Canada's Shipsource Oil Pollution Fund, SOPF, allows any person, community, or government to file claims for cleanup costs, property damage, and losses to fishing, tourism, and subsistence harvesting. But a 2021 WWF Canada Commission report found only one relatively small claim has ever been paid directly to an Indigenous group. The problem, Indigenous leaders say, is structural. The SOPF compensates economic losses that can be documented with receipts or market data. It struggles with non-economic losses that define Indigenous life on the coast: interrupted access to harvesting sites, loss of ceremonial practices, damage to culturally significant species, and the severing of knowledge transfer between elders and youth. Proving those impacts often requires communities to disclose sensitive cultural information, navigate language barriers, and fit intangible harms into economic models that weren't built for them. Oil doesn't just hit the water. It hits our laws, our teachings, our food security, and our ability to be who we are as people, said a spokesperson for the nation. If the compensation formula only counts boats and nets, it tells us our culture has no value in the eyes of the law. The nation's submission asks the UN body reviewing international liability regimes to explicitly recognize cultural losses as a compensable category. That would align spill compensation with other areas of Canadian law where collective cultural harm is now acknowledged. In January 2023, Canada and 325 First Nations finalized a $2.8 billion settlement in the Gottfriedson class action to compensate for loss of language and culture caused by the residential school system. Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations Mark Miller said the agreement addressed collective harm, with funds managed by an independent Indigenous-led board for language and culture revitalization. Legal experts note that the Specific Claims Tribunal Act already allows First Nations to seek compensation for losses arising from breaches of Crown obligations, but it applies only to historical claims, not contemporary disasters like spills. Modernizing the Marine Liability Act to include cultural, ecological, and human health impacts would bring Canada closer to its commitments under the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.